So I'm only going to record this once, and then I'm going to add it to every show going forward. Well, going forward for a few months at least, because I'm doing a contest. A contest. Why? Well, I want to get more listeners, and sometimes you have to bribe people to do that, and I'm going to bribe with a prize. We'll get to the prize in a minute. Anyway, I started this show on September 9th of 2020. So during my 52nd episode, which will be around that time in 2021, I'm going to do a drawing. How do you get in? Well, you got to write a review of this podcast on the podcatcher of your choice. That means you can write it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you find it, because it's everywhere, right? Even Audible. And what you got to do is you can send me a link to that review along with the text and your name. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that review or your name in a little hopper, one of those things you turn around that you see at the bingo game where grandma goes. Yeah, that thing. I'm going to put it in one of those things, a metaphorical one, because I don't really have one. It's impractical to own a hopper like that. It really doesn't make any sense to own one, but it's a metaphorical hopper. But that's besides the point. Okay, so you're going to be entered into the hopper whenever you send me a link to a review that you do. So there's no limit to that. If you want to review it in multiple places, do that. And you get your name in the for every one of those reviews. Yeah. And the other thing is you could share the show. Yeah, you could just tell your friends, tell your mom, tell your grandma, anybody. Don't tell your grandpa, because grandpas don't really know what podcasts are. At least older grandpas. I've discovered that there's people my age that are grandpas now, and they probably know what podcasts are. But there's not many of us in my age group that are grandpas. But you can tell them, I guess. If your grandpa's cool, you can tell them about this podcast. So if you tell them and they let me know by being a new listener, they can send me an email at the address, which I'll mention later on. And you can tell me who told them about the show, and I'll enter both your names into the hopper. Yeah, so there's no limit to the number of times you can enter, and the more people you refer and the more reviews that you post, the better your chances are to win the prize. Questions going to be directed, along with your links and all that other stuff, to peacelovingrobotspod@gmail.com. That's peacelovingrobotspod@gmail.com. And, you can send me questions too. Yeah. There are restrictions. Of course, mostly if you don't live in the U.S., you can't enter. And the prize, well, the prize, it's going to be a $50 gift card to Amazon. Buy whatever you want. So, yeah, get out there, review the show, share the show. Let me know how you do. And we'll get some names in there. It's going to be fun. Hello and welcome to Peace, Love, and Robots, a podcast about anything and everything and all that is in between. This is episode number 34 for April 28th, April 28th, 2021, and I'm your host, Jeremy, as always. Yeah, it's almost May. Yeah, almost May. Last week we had snow here in my neck of the woods, and today it was almost 80 degrees outside. Yeah, that's what the weather is like around these parts. Who knows what May will bring? It could bring flowers and the promise of summer, which is right around the corner. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? I don't. As always, this podcast is brought to you by the ads you hear at the beginning and the end of the show. So if you listen all the way through, I'll forever be in your debt. I'd love to get a sponsor that makes stuff that I use. Today, first, give you a little background. You know, I'm trying to lose a little weight, so I cut out the soda, like all soda, including diet soda. I don't drink any fizzy drinks except for maybe a can of Fresca once in a while, or a sparkling water drink. You know, not a lot of soda. So I drink a lot of water. You know, and bottled water is usually my go-to. Smart water, if you must know. I like smart water, not for the label. It actually doesn't taste like the bottle, which is pretty much why I drink smart water. But, you know, I tried this thing. I saw an ad for it on Facebook. I didn't buy through the ad on Facebook because who does that? And it was for a canned water. Yeah, a can of water. It didn't make any sense to me either, but I saw it in the local convenience store, and my Brita pitcher, which is normally in the fridge, was empty. I had been drinking it all day, and there was no cold water, so I was out, and I grabbed a can of water. It's called Liquid Death Mountain Water, and it's there to murder your thirst. What a great motto. So the Liquid Death people, if you need a spokesperson, and I would definitely drink this. It was good. It was not bad. And their goal is to get rid of plastic bottles, which is, you know, pretty noble. And 10% of the proceeds when you buy it gets rid of the plastic bottles. And to be honest with you, most plastic bottled water tastes like the bottle and not water. And that's why I drink the smart water. But I would be willing to switch it up for Liquid Death if it was as widely available as the smart water. So enough about that. They're not even an advertiser, at least not yet. Liquid Death, give me a call or send me an email. The number in the email will be at the end of the show. Anyway, this week I have been obsessed with screenplays. I know I've mentioned in previous shows my love of the art of screenwriting, how I studied it in college all those years ago, literally 2 decades ago, almost 3, I studied screenwriting. I still love the craft of screenwriting, and I really want to get back in the game, and I could pursue a master's degree in screenwriting, but, you know, I've mentioned also before that that's sort of a lost cause because, you know, I'm going to be, by the time I graduate, over 50, and there's not a lot of first-time screenwriters out there that are almost half a century old. So I figured that's a futile effort, but I do like the craft, and I want to dive into it a little bit. And so I figured, why not try to learn and hone it on my own? Thankfully, there's lots of books out there. Robert McKee has written a few good books. William Goldman, the writer of both Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and The Princess Bride. I didn't know that until last week. They've written good books on screenwriting, apparently, so I've gotten those. That's not even a real word. Why did I say gotten? I've got those. I bought those on Amazon on my Kindle. They're a pretty good deal. And I've also found some good communities of like-minded screenwriting individuals. So there's also podcasts. And all this stuff is really, really good to sort of wet your whistle. You could wet your whistle with Liquid Death, or you could wet your whistle with podcasts. But yeah, they're great for just kind of getting in the game and just sort of hearing the verbiage and being encouraged and learning about the art of screenwriting. So one of the questions that's asked all the time, you hear it in pretty much every interview of a screenwriter, is what screenplays do you recommend people read? Because really, if you want to write well, you need to read a lot, like a lot. And for screenwriting, you need to read a lot of screenplays. Reading prose is one thing, but screenplays are a specific type of writing, and you have to learn how to find that balance between simplicity and complex. And you have to know how to write a narrative, but also include stage direction and location, and dialogue is also very, very important, obviously. Well, not well, it's not as important as the other stuff. Dialogue is actually sort of the last thing you do. At least that's what what I've come to understand. But they always ask, what screenplays would you recommend reading? And, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, that comes up a lot. People like that. And I've watched that movie once. It's a great flick. I've never read the script, but I was able to find it online. And I'm gonna dig in at some point. And someone else mentioned Chinatown. A couple people have mentioned Chinatown as a screenplay you must read. Chinatown, if you don't know, is a movie from 1974. It was written by Robert Towne, starring Jack Nicholson, and directed by Roman Polanski. And this was before Roman Polanski was known. He was known, but it was before the controversy, before he did some pretty terrible things that he should face consequences for. But it was before that, so I've sort of like hedged my, qualms with reading a screenplay and watching a movie that he's involved in. But he wasn't involved in the writing of the screenplay. He directed the movie. Anyway, one of my long dormant podcasts that I've sort of been in the process of relaunching, maybe a third season of, is called Mind the Gaps. And that's a podcast where I watch movies I've never seen before and I discuss them either on my own or with potential guests and discuss their impact on the culture at large and how they may or may not have influenced the films that followed them. Because most of the movies I watch on Mind the Gaps are movies that are older. I don't watch a lot of newer movies. If you look at the list, actually the only movies that I've watched have been old. And I like to think about how they might have influenced the culture and the movies that came after. And I think I mentioned that already. See, gaps reference the gaps in my pop culture IQ, and the movies are what fill those gaps. With Chinatown, you get the precursor of pretty much every modern detective story. Literally. You see the cliches before they become cliches. There's a twist ending. The dialogue is super sharp, and I can only imagine how good the performances are. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm going to watch it and discuss it in a future episode of Mind the Gaps. So keep your eyes peeled for that soon. Or should I say your ears open? Yeah. Anyway, I've been reading scripts, not just good ones, but bad ones. I read a good one for a Oscar. Now, actually won the Oscar this year for best original screenplay. And I forget her name. Emerald Tannen, I think is her name. She wrote a screenplay called Promising Young Woman. And a lot of the screenplays for the Oscar-nominated movies are available online for free, so you can get them, you can read them, and they kind of disappear soon after the Oscars. So if you're a screenwriting person and you want to read them, you got to get them quick. And so I was able to read Promising Young Woman, and it's a pretty decent script. I don't know how the movie is. I don't know when I'll see the movie, but the script reads fast. And it has another twist ending that I kind of dug. Didn't dig it all the way, but it was good. And it's a good screenplay. It's really well structured. I think I haven't read all of them, but I think it's a deserved win. And I'll look at the others and sort of judge that based on after having more knowledge. I'll make a better judgment. But it was a really good script, and it's a good script I've read recently, and. I read the script of Chinatown, of course, which is just great. And I've also been reading really bad ones. And I don't mean bad by people that have made movies and have written movies that have been made. I'm talking about my screenplays, my old screenplays. The last script that I wrote was in 2002. That's almost 20 years ago. And I wrote that when I was unemployed. And I was home with my son, who is now 19. So he was a baby, like a baby. And in between diaper changes and bottle feedings and trying to sleep when he was asleep, because that's really what you should do with babies, I was writing. I was writing a lot because I didn't have a job. I was looking for a job, but I was writing, and I was really, really serious about it. And so in that time, I wrote a couple of novellas. I made some good